wonderful having everyone here.
Closer to the mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's wonderful having everyone here. As you know, Chief Dolan has announced that he won't be seeking a term. Chief Dolan remains the chief in this city, and we have a lot more work we're going to get out of you, Chief, which is great. And but we're planning for an orderly transition, and I couldn't be happier about nominating somebody who I've worked with through all sorts of different issues and have an enormous respect for, and that's Janeé Harteau. The good news about the transition that we're planning here is this will give Assistant Chief Harteau a number of months to go out in the community, bring the knowledge she has, but also take a fresh look too, and have a good battle plan coming for her when she steps into office. But to do that under the partnership of Chief Dolan, who will remain in the lead. So we want to just give folks an opportunity to get to know the person we hope to be our next chief. We'd like you to allow Janeé the ability not to get into great depth about what her policing strategy is going to be. She could do that, but what we want to do is to respect our community and give her a chance to go out and talk fresh to them and come back later on that. But we wanted to give a chance to get to know her a little bit. And Chief, why don't I turn over to you first?
High tech we have here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to introduce Janeé, and I kind of apologize for how all this happened. Last week when I was out of town, I really didn't think an announcement was that big of a deal. It's part of our process. And our process here is you need to declare whether you're going to run again by the summer, and just kind of keep things going smoothly. And I expected to see maybe a little blurb in the paper, and that was it. So. But let's talk about Janeé. Obviously, I have a lot of confidence in her. She's my second in command. She and I, actually, as a team, have been doing the work in the Minneapolis Police Department for a couple of years now. So she's got an incredible head on her shoulders. She's progressive. I've been excited about her for a long time, and she brings not just a lot to the Minneapolis Police Department, but to the profession in this nation. So I'm excited about it, and I consider it a huge success for the Minneapolis Police Department, being able to keep the chief job within the department. It speaks volumes as to the trust that we have with our mayor and our elected and our community, and that's very, very important. So let's hear from Janeé.
Yes. Well, first, thank you all for being here. I know everybody's really busy waiting for a verdict, and there's a lot of news going on today. So I appreciate you all coming here to meet me, and I appreciate this opportunity. I certainly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't first and foremost by Mayor Rybak. I appreciate your vision and your support and confidence in me to lead the Minneapolis Police Department moving forward. And I would be remiss if I didn't give thanks and appreciation to Chief Dolan for his leadership, mentorship, and the legacy he's going to leave for me to build upon. I'm actually rather overwhelmed with all the attention I've gotten. The emails, phone calls, not only locally, internally, externally, but nationally. People are very much cheering for me, cheering for the police department, and I feel a little bit of enormous responsibility to be successful, but I know I didn't get here alone. I got here, frankly, on the shoulders of many women and pioneers before me, and those within the department. A leader is only as good as the people they're surrounded by, and we have tremendous tools and talents, not only in the police department, but in the community. I'm very much about collaborative partnerships. That's more than a relationship, frankly. Relationships can be dysfunctional. They can be one-sided. But we have really good partnerships here, and that means both sides are invested, both sides trust one another, and understand exactly what our role is in moving forward. We may not always agree, but we're going to focus on the mission at hand and making Minneapolis the safest city. Then I'll take questions.
You said you want to build upon his legacy. Can you talk about what you'll do differently and what you're going to bring to the office?
Well, I think we're going to build on what works. We've certainly been very progressive in our analytics and hotspot policing and building community partnerships and our technology. But I really want to look at what is working, all of our processes in a real deep fashion, and also hear from some community members that I haven't had an opportunity to talk to.
This is a department, I mean, you've been around a long time. It hasn't, it's had good days, bad days. It always hasn't been the most inviting environment, sometimes especially for females. Just, can you give us kind of your sense of history, and you've had struggles in the department, I'm sure, and now where you're at, and how we've gotten here and how you can move that forward if you're in charge?
It's all about communication and having conversations with people, and our new YouTube site is one of the ways we can reach out to different audiences and not having such a moving into a non-traditional way of communicating and reaching folks that we normally wouldn't. Obviously, in a big city or a big police department, it's really hard to talk to people one-on-one on a frequent basis. So how do we do that? And technology is really helping in that. Our ability to be able to tell our story and to be able to let folks know exactly what we're doing.
What about internally?
Internally
For the cop on the street or working your way up through it. How do you want to see it progress the way you've been able to progress in the system?
We have a lot of talents in the department and really diversifying and putting the right folks in the right places. I have been fortunate enough to be able to have movement within the organization, have people have confidence in my abilities, and a person given that opportunity will be able to show themselves great at doing that.
Do you feel like there's more pressure on you as the first?
My whole career I didn't focus on, I know I'm female, I realize that, but that's not something that's been a focus. My focus has always been to do my job and do it well. I think having a few bumps along the way makes you empathetic, frankly. And that comes not just on the job, but me as a person. My own childhood, we had struggles. We weren't always the most wealthy of people, and so the more you're exposed to different people, different demographics, the better off we all are, because we understand that we have more in common than we do different.
You talked a little bit, or kind of touched on the whole pioneer aspect, and what does it feel like kind of to be a pioneer in this role?
Well, as I said, I do stand upon the shoulders of other people before me. I've had some tremendous mentors throughout my career. The U.S. Marshal Sharon Lubinsky being one of them, Inspector Lucy Gerald, just two off the top of my head. It's a proud moment, but it is also very frankly a scary moment, because I do feel like all eyes are upon me for more than one reason. And my focus still, it's really not about me. I'm just Janeé, and it's about who we serve and about the people that we work with to get us there.
Can you speak a little bit about, going from Duluth to Minneapolis and becoming a cop in a big city? What led to that decision for you? What got you into policing?
Tell that to Pat Benatar.
The Pat Benatar, yeah, everybody likes it. Actually, I have some pictures that maybe one day I'll share. I grew up in Duluth for the most part, but I was like a big city girl trapped in a smaller city. And I like people, I like differences, and I like movement. And so I really wanted to contribute and my goal was always to have some impact, my legacy. I want people to remember I was here for a reason and that I did contribute in some form. And that's really how I got into law enforcement. I thought that was it was a challenge. I've always accepted a challenge and had a few bumps being in law enforcement school at the time. And then Minneapolis gave me an opportunity. And it was an opportunity to meet a wealth of people that I'd never have come into contact with, and to really make myself better. And people say, as you get experience, you should have all the answers. People assume you get to a place where you have all the answers, and frankly, the more you get to know and the more educated you are, the less answers you have, but the better questions you ask. And the better questions we ask, we start to come up with better solutions.
Talk a little bit about, across the street, this high profile, Occupy. How do you think, North Minneapolis, you've seen these things, but when you're in that chair and we're asking you the tough question about people being dragged out or not dragged out, the big events, how is that going to fit into your personality in terms of being able to cope with it, your demeanor, things like that?
I'm very honest and transparent, and will always tell you what I can. And I'm just beginning to understand what that will mean. And as Chief Dolan can tell you, you really truly don't know until you're there. And so I will continue to seek help, ask for advice. Like I said, I didn't get here alone. I will not be successful alone.
Can you talk about, there's been an uptick in crime in certain areas, like the first precinct in North Minneapolis, and violent crime in particular. Any idea why and what you might do to address that once you're settled in?
Well, we've made some really good progress on violent crime, and we certainly, as long as we have an unsolved case like Terrell Mays, our work is not done. And so focusing on what crime trends and patterns we have in the area and using all of our resources, it's truly understanding what's going on in that area and putting all those resources towards it. Downtown is certainly a focus. It always will be. We have a tremendous amount of people that come and go downtown. The crime numbers are low compared to how many folks are downtown, but every crime is important to address.
Do you ever dream of this? Sitting here?
No. My focus was always on whatever job I had at the time. And I think for me, it's just being good at what you're doing and trying to contribute the best you can, and the next presents itself.
Mayor, we're talking today as if this is a done deal. This is months away from now. We're talking about the end of the year. Chief Dolan will step down. The city council still needs to approve it.
Yep.
Are we saying here essentially the city council, you have the votes to support this?
Do we have to go back into another exercise where we count council votes?
Well, I mean, it's going to be crucial at some point,
absolutely.
right?
No, it's absolutely
Yeah.
critical. I have been in close touch with council members for some time about what we wanted with the next step with the chief. But before I made this announcement, I was in contact with council members, and there's extremely strong support for Janeé on that. The council deserves the right to fully vet Janeé and to vote at the appropriate time, and they will. I can say I think the council is as almost as excited as I am, and that's pretty darn exciting.
Mm-hmm.
While you have the microphones, can you just say this is the second time in a row the chief has come from inside? Is that something that's by design? Are you trying to get a program where people progress through the department?
There's no model for that. I've appointed a chief from the outside, and I've appointed two chiefs from the inside, and I think you pick the best chief. Ideally, you do grow a chief through the ranks, and I think one of the things that, as usual, an unsung hero is Chief Dolan. Chief Dolan and I were fairly aware that he wasn't going to seek a third term on all of this, and I think at different times we're pretty clear that we wanted to develop leadership within the ranks of the department and have several great candidates, and we do, to pick from internally. And one of those that the chief really, I think, nurtured and grew and got in a position to be here is Janeé. And so I think we had a really good chance to look at her under a real microscope leading the first precinct. When you're running the downtown command, Rob Allen, all you guys know, that's absolutely under the Klieg lights. And so she succeeded there. She succeeded as a deputy chief. When she moved into assistant chief, she was involved in virtually everything, and she succeeded at all of that. So I think we have a case of someone who did well. You go outside often sometimes to bring in a fresh perspective, which I did with Chief McManus. One of the advantages here is that we have somebody who's been in the department for a long time who also has a fresh perspective.
Assistant Chief, if I may ask, you're going to have some intense conversations behind closed doors with city council members, and I have to believe that they're going to ask you, what trends do you see in the horizon that scare you and are concerned about for Minneapolis? And what do you see on the horizon that the city needs to start tackling now or start thinking about towards fighting?
Well, one of our concerns today, and will probably be then, is gun violence. where are the guns coming from? How is it that young kids are getting guns? That is a primary focus for us. And I've already had meetings set up to talk to council members on a lot of those issues and hear from them with what they feel are priorities.
One of the stories that we're looking at today, just to put this out on the table, we frankly don't really know what to make of it. So people are saying that police officers have been giving them drugs and then dropping them off at the plaza down here, and there's several people who have been saying that. Are the Minneapolis police involved in this drug recognition expert program?
Do you want to answer that? Chief, since we still have the chief. I could.
As far as we know, we looked at the allegations. There was nothing involving Minneapolis police. And I'd be shocked if we were involved. So we're looking into it. We don't know. We've seen the allegations, heard the allegations. If that's the case, we're not very happy about that. But we'll look into it and find out and get some answers. But there's nothing there was nothing implicating Minneapolis police in there.
Have these other law enforcement agencies contacted you, telling you they were going to be doing this, for dropping them off, if that is indeed true?
No. I think we probably have an issue with that. So.
This question may come out wrong because stupid TV guy. So for a long time you see the the gray-haired veteran male cop out on the street. What advantages does it bring to bringing a female chief in? I mean,
we're not talking about me.
I mean, it's a different face, it's a different perspective, or maybe perceived that way. Should it be perceived that way, or what?
The advantage is I get to color my hair. Don't let the non-gray on the outside fool you. I think it just brings a difference in dynamics. One of the reasons why the chief and I work well together is because we approach things differently. We have different communication styles, but when you do that, people are individuals, and so we all do things a little differently. So I don't want to surround myself with people like me. I want to surround myself with people who bring skills and talents that complement mine. And so I feel that's what the chief and I have brought, and I will continue to move that forward. Out in the community, also internally.
One of the things you're going to be dealing with is sort of the turmoil that's happening right now at the CRA. Everyone knows that police officers have a difficult job, but they've also seen some pretty high-profile settlements in the past year, and now with this CRA turmoil, people don't really know what to make of it. Are they headed towards something that will make the police department more accountable or less accountable? How are you going to deal with that aspect of your job?
Well, one, the past doesn't always equal the future, and I see the right people at the table to have the conversations about how to best move forward, and I think that there'll be a fairly good process moving forward.
Okay, just
Yeah,
make a quick point.
absolutely.
Just on that point, Matt, because it's a good one. The chief and our civil rights director, Bill McCorville, had quietly been making a tremendous amount of progress into coming up with a system that would have been better when we were thrown a curveball by the legislature and the governor on something no one asked us to do. I really applaud the chief and Bill McCorville for really looking at a system that has always had challenges, in part because it's a big idea that the community can have a say in making the police culture better. That's not an easy thing to solve. It wasn't helpful that the legislature stuck their nose into something without asking us about it, but I'm confident that the chief and our civil rights director and our new chief and the civil rights director can make it better. It'll always be tough. but
Mr. Mayor,
that's the point.
while you have the mics, how do you think the chief may or may not handle traffic, violence, crowds around a new Viking stadium?
Oh, I think.
Go Vikings!
Yeah. I'll just say, I want to brag about not just our chief, but our whole city. Do you guys remember when the Viking Stadium was being planned? Remember all those points people made about the chaos that was going to take place and how nutty it was going to be for every single game? Well, our public works department, our police department, a lot of folks in our city came together. Have you seen any problems with traffic around Twins games?
Crowds bring safety. Crowds
Yes,
bring
they do.
safety.
Yeah, and there was tremendous work done in the city. So I just want to brag about our city effort. She'll do great at it, but so will lots of other folks in that.
One of the other issues that came up this year with the police department, you were looking at staffing levels. You're at somewhere about 850 now. It's going to be down to 825 by the end of this year, just due to natural attrition rates. Is that enough? Is that enough officers for the police department? How many do you need going forward?
Well, we're constantly evaluating our resources, and focus will be. We have an aging department, so we need to look at that. We certainly want to be hiring diverse candidates, well-educated officers, so it's something that we constantly look at. To blanket how much do you need, there's a lot of variables in that. And so it's not a simple equation.
There are some folks that are just interested in the fact that you come from a Native American background. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I am part Chippewa. My family's registered with the Bad River Band in Wisconsin. And what else would you like to know about that?
That answers my question.
All right.
Do you think that might help you gain trust of people who might not have a good relationship with the police department now?
Well, I would hope anything would help. I appreciate anything that might help that, and if I certainly could be a role model, I'm happy to do that. I would hope to be able to build relationships in other communities, although I don't have that ethnicity. I think just being open-minded and caring about people and trying to do the right things is also enough to help build trust.
Could I finish with one just comment that I think is important to make? I think appointing Janeé Harteau chief will be one of the proudest actions that I've had as mayor. I would also say that appointing Chief Dillon and seeing his success is one of the proudest things that I've gotten to do as mayor. To watch him come into a crisis in which this city was deeply challenged, and to very calmly and wisely lead us through one of the most difficult periods that we could possibly have, and have such success has really meant a lot. Chief Dolan is somebody who I think is a Minnesotan. He plays it a little close to the vest. You don't see his emotions out there a lot. I have been in a lot of situations where the chief has been at a crime scene with somebody whose kid has died, horrible, tough things, and the chief has left a lot of blood and sweat out on the streets of Minneapolis, and I just think this city owes an enormous debt to someone who has done a tremendous amount. And the good news is he has to keep working, so thank you for all your work. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.